It's incredible. Who expected this album to sound anything like Van Halen? I don't understand why people would think that. It's been spelled out. None of the songs prior have sounded like Van Halen, so there should be no reason for that correlation despite his sharing the same last name. But it doesn't, and it shouldn't. And why? Because his last name is the same, of course, but he has his own style and approach. And what he does here is he kind of shares with Ed a fresh musical perspective. Each of these 14 songs are well developed and crafted. There's no throwaways here. Every song is its own little treasure and has its own vibe. This album has not only has great musicianship in it, but quality lyrics and strong emotional core to it. Wolf's voice is full of passion, and he really sells the mood on each track. Dave, what was your initial impression of the album after hearing it?
Well, now that I heard the whole thing from beginning to end, new tracks and tracks have been released before, I think overall it's a good, solid album. Mm-hmm. It sounds great.
Yeah, the sound is amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, it's a big, full rock album.
Uh-huh.
And it's definitely not Van Halen.
No. Nothing like
right?
it. Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a hard rock album.
Yeah,
but that's where the similarities end. Although I think Wolf does have his father's ability to write catchy songs and recognizes that, you know, you got to have some joy in listening to the song. There's some pop sensibilities in there, some nice choruses and things like that. Like you said, Wolf's musicianship is really solid. I find myself air drumming to the album a lot, which says a lot. You know, you really hit the nail on the head about Wolf hitting an emotional chord, which is not always something Van Halen would do. Wolf does a really good job and excels at that lyrically with this album.
Absolutely. You can feel that he's incredibly driven on this album. You feel like that this is not some random bunch of songs that he's thrown together to start his career. You can tell that this was very well planned. This was very well written. This was very well thought out. You could feel a lot of effort has been put into this release. And we're going to get into it. But just to start off, I did want to note a few Van Halen nods. Like I said, doesn't sound like Van Halen at all, but there's little winks to Van Halen throughout the whole thing. So let me just note a couple things. Of course, number one is the band name. Mammoth is the former name of Van Halen. Prior to the band being Van Halen, is Ed on guitar and vocals and Al on drums and Mark Stone on bass. And number two, the album is self-titled, like Van Halen 1, for sure. Number three, the end of Don't Back Down has that So This Is Love wink that we talked about in the news before. Number four, the first song is called Mr. Ed because Wolf plays an Eddie Van Halen-style hammer-on guitar solo there as a wink to his dad. Number five, Distance, of course, the final song on the album, which is the bonus track, and the dedication song, which is obviously a memorial to Ed. Number six, the album is dedicated to Ed, and in a very unique way, and we'll talk about that a little later on. And number seven, the back cover, the four squares, is a wink to the first Van Halen album, as well as, you know, what the 2007 homepage of the website looked like as well, where you have the four squares, each representing the microphone, the guitar, the bass, the drums. So there's a little Van Halen winks. Now, the sound, like we said, is not Van Halen. Dave, what did you think of those little Van Halen winks?
Yeah, I think little nods and winks to his dad's band, especially the first album. But, you know, that's all they are. Just little hint and things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it ends, though. I mean,
yeah.
Musically, he's doing his own thing. Maybe you hear a little bit of Ed in a certain guitar solo, like with Mr. Ed. But, that's it. That's it. It wasn't like he says, I'm going to continue Van Halen and be a Van Halen clone. He's not doing that.
No, he's not.
All.
He's not, and he shouldn't. And I think he's right in doing what he's doing. So now, just to get into the packaging, it is a soft paper cover. There's a name for this kind of packaging. I forgot what it's called, though.
Is this the Eco packaging?
Eco, that's like it. The Eco pack, right, there you go. The front cover we've all seen, okay? So it's the artist John Rosio. We've all seen the image with the crab, which is crushing the cars in the parking lot, and the businessman standing by. It's an interesting image. So that's on the front. We've all seen that. That's also on the inside, there is a booklet, which has that as a cover. And on the inside, he has all the lyrics are printed with all the song titles. They're on sort of like a watercolor painting with the Mammoth logo on each corner. And in the credits, obviously Wolf did everything himself. We all know he played guitar, he played bass, he played drums, he sang everything, he wrote everything. His management is down as the Trusted Humans, which I believe is his manager and his uncle Pat, which is Valerie's brother, and Matt Bruck, who was Ed's guitar tech at 5150. It was recorded at 5150 Studios, Studio Barbarossa, also 415 Studios, and NRG Recording Studios. The most interesting part of the packaging is at the end of the booklet, there's this beautiful picture of him and Eddie. So now this picture is kind of old. So this picture is from like 2012. This is during A Different Kind of Truth promo. This is a photo from an actual magazine that a man by the name of Peter Yang took. Beautiful picture of Wolf playing his Wolfstein bass and Eddie kind of like ruffling his head and smiling at the same time, showing how proud he is of him. Wolf is a younger man here. He's probably about 22 years old, something like that. And it says here, right on the bottom, the dedication. And it says, "This one's for you, Pop." Now, that is the other Van Halen wink, because when Eddie's dad died, Eddie and Alex's dad died, Jan Van Halen, the OU812 album came out, and they dedicated that album to him, and they said, "This one's for you, Pa." They used to call him Pa. So that's another wink there, too. Dave, what did you think of that when you saw that?
I got deja vu catching on to that right away. That was a nice OU812 aside there.
Right, absolutely.
So, yes.
Then you got the credits in the center. There's a picture of Wolf lying down with all the equipment around him, and it's kind of a cool thing. And then the back, we talked about the back cover ready with the four corners of the different things. So let's get into the album. We'll start off right away with the first song, Mr. Ed. And here's a clip. Well, this song kind of eases you right into the album. You hear that seesaw type guitar in the beginning going back and forth, up and down. The sound lays a nice thick bass to it with the drums and the bass, real solid. And about a minute in, it kind of opens to the chorus, which is really strong, as you heard. It's called Mr. Ed, not that the song is about Eddie, but because he does an Eddie-style solo. And here's a clip of that. And as you can tell, Wolf definitely has the Eddie touch. He can certainly play like Ed if he wanted to, but that is really a nod to his father. And by calling it Mr. Ed and putting it right up front, he's really nodding to Ed. Now, the album's dedicated to Ed. He starts opening with Mr. Ed, and he closes the album with Distance, so there's sort of the wrap around there. Obviously, Eddie being a main influence in his life, in his musical career. But the interesting thing is, this song sounds nothing like Van Halen or anything that Ed does other than the solo, but the solo is an homage. So the chorus is repeated. It's got a really strong melody. I love this song. What'd you think of this one, Dave?
Great opener to the album. Solid. And I love his solo on this.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Like I said, a nice little homage.
It's interesting. I think the solo adds a lot of bite to the song.
Oh, yeah. I agree. For the better part. And it's typical of a lot of the songs on the album. You can hear all the instruments clearly. You hear that big rock sound.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part is, it's just really solid and amazing how it sounds like a solid band. And you know that Wolf is playing all the instruments and layering them over each other.
Right, which is not an easy trick, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound sterile, though. It doesn't sound cold or anything.
Right.
Which is sometimes can happen when you're in the studio too much and, you don't have people playing against each other or anything. There's a little of that because of the style that Wolf has and the way people make albums now. But overall, great, solid way to open up the album.
Absolutely. We go on to song number 2, which is Horribly Right. Here's a clip.
I don't think you'll ever realize
Well, this song wastes no time giving us a delicious, tasty riff right up front. This is a long-running theme in this album. There are some really nice riffs all throughout this album, which is incredible. I'll talk a little about that later, but it's interesting because this riff is actually heavier than the song. So it kind of adds a different color here. The song is pretty mid-tempo, but the riff comes back. It comes in here about 1 minute and 16 seconds, and then it also comes back about 3 minutes and 7 seconds. So it just gives like the song a little bit of more depth. Wolf seems to write lyrics like he's kind of battling someone. He seems like he's really driven, like I said earlier in the conversation. Very much like Distance, he has that one single note here that he holds, which is kind of very effective. That's a cool thing that he does. This song's a real go-getter and has a fun energy. You can tell that this is going to do really well in concert, too. Dave, what do you think of Horribly Right?
I, too, on the riff. Interesting that we both like the riff in the song. I think it's like a dirty riff. It's so good. Another rockin' song. He's still firing on all cylinders. And lyrically, yeah, you're right. It seems like, he's always talking to someone about something, maybe good, maybe not so good, how it made him feel or how it didn't work out or whatever, something like that. I feel like that's a regular theme throughout the album. But yeah, I mean, the guitars are in full swing. And he's still going strong on this one.
Absolutely. We get to the third song, which is Epiphany. And here's a clip.
What would you do if I already knew? How do you sleep at night? What would you say if I threw this away? Is it really worth being right? Will you wake me? I'm falling down, but I've never felt so alive. Will you hate me when it's all done? 'Cause I've never felt more alive.
This song has an incredible sense of melody. One thing that really was striking, they have this sweet guitar crunch in the background, and it really adds to the texture of this song. You got to really listen for it. One thing that's very, very, very key with this album, we've talked about this before in other albums, but especially with this one, this is a headphone album. You want to really hear this in headphones to really get the encapsulated feel of the whole thing. There's a lot of layers and a lot of texture here. You don't want to miss it, because sometimes if you have it, you're listening to it through your phone or you're just playing it in your car or something like that. A lot of those little nuances can get lost, and you don't want to lose that here. Like I said, this album is well crafted by both Wolf and Elvis Bisquet. He does an incredible job here. He really brings Wolf's vision to life. Again, another similarity to Van Halen. Not sound, but the way Ted was able to get exactly what Ed wanted to do and really bring it out. So Ted Templeman, who is Van Halen's producer for the first 6 albums with Dave, and then he came back for the Fuck album in 91 for a little bit. But Ted really knew how to capture Van Halen. I should also say Don Landy, because it's really Ted and Don. It's not just Ted. Don Landy was a genius behind that board. But Elvis Bisquet, who, by the way, his first name is Michael. I didn't know. I thought his first name was Elvis, but his real name is Michael Elvis Bisquet. I guess Elvis is his nickname, or maybe his middle name. I'm not sure. However, he knows how to handle him. And let me tell you something. In the wrong hands, this could have gone the wrong way. But the way Elvis handled it, it's very clear that they have a strong synergy there, and that's important. So anyway, on Epiphany, there is this bridge. I think it comes in about 2 minutes and 43 seconds. This dramatic breakdown with piano. It has almost angelic background vocals, and then there's the guitar buildup that really amps up the song, and then it ends with, "Wake